All right, welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pusher podcast. As always, my name is Justin. As you guys know, we are two Americans very invested in Formula One, so no one is better placed than we are to talk about what is going on with the Haas F1 team right now. Brandon, how you feeling today?
Feeling good. Feels good to be an American Formula One fan. So it's a great day.
And it is a great day. We got our own team, our own driver, and somehow it might be both the worst team and the worst driver on the grid, but that's all right. We'll cheer anyways. That's just the way it goes. But as we know, the Haas F1 team launched the livery last week. The first livery launch, even though McLaren launched theirs on a surprise, we didn't know it was going to happen a couple weeks ago. But what do you think of their livery?
I think it's all right. It's a evolution of the livery they've had the past couple of years. And it doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of exposed carbon fiber on the car, but I think the red and the white has always looked good to me. I wish they'd kind of, I don't know, maybe put a little more blue in there, red, white, and blue, America. But I think overall it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way that Formula One is moving, is having more liveries that have more carbon in them. But I think it is a little bit better than last year's. Obviously, I think the black, white, and red is a classic combination. I think it looks cooler from the front than it has in years past. But more than just the livery itself, the actual launch of the livery was pretty lame. You know, you see all these other teams do events. They have people come out from the sponsors. They've got music. They've got cool skits they've recorded weeks earlier with the drivers. And Haas was like, here's 4 pictures on Twitter and nothing of our drivers. uh, and so I don't know. I don't know what that says about Haas. Like, are they not trying to engage with their fans? Like, the American Formula One market is booming, and Haas, as the American team, is doing nothing to take advantage of that.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I mean, I guess that happened. It was a little bit overshadowed by the big news of Lewis moving to Ferrari in 2025. So Haas didn't have any help from Lewis there, but at the same time, it seemed like there was a lack of effort from Haas on the livery launch. I mean, I know Haas doesn't have the resources that some of these other teams have, but I mean, even like today, Williams launched their livery, and they had an event in like New York City, and they had this really cool video and some awesome pictures of Alex and Logan and their new helmets, their new race suits. I mean, like there was like it was a big deal. And I don't know, I've never been in a Formula One team, but I think like the livery launch, the car launch, like that's kind of the start of the season. Even from a fan's perspective, from mine, it's like, okay, when the first like livery launch happens, it's like, all right, things are picking up. We're getting ready. Testing's in a couple weeks, and it seems like Haas is just like, yeah, all right, I guess we're just gonna schedule this to post at 9 a.m. on the 2nd, and yeah, it'll be it. We're done with it. That's good. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Again, I think it maybe could be due to lack of resources. Haas doesn't have as deep of pockets as Red Bull, Mercedes, or really any other team. But yeah, I agree. I think lack of effort is definitely there.
But I mean, speaking of Williams, like you said, I mean, Williams and Haas have been the two teams that have been at the back of the grid for the last couple of years, have been known to have budget and resource problems over the last couple of years. And so if you took the teams on face value just from the livery launches alone and said, which of these two teams has all the momentum at their back, you'd clearly say Williams. And then I would be willing to bet that that's what we're going to see carry over into the track when we get to testing, just because, the one team is fully bought in and it seems like the other team is just kind of trying to stay afloat and make sure they check all the Formula One boxes. But I don't know. Do you think Haas is going to be any good this year?
I think my prediction has gotta be no on that one. Yeah, I don't know. I agree. I think they're just trying to stay afloat, and They don't really seem to be uh, committed to like winning championships for sure. You know, they're trying to compete, I think, but it's like at the same time you have to do things that the teams that are competing for championships do, and it seems like Haas isn't really doing those things, not just from a livery launch standpoint, but from other standpoints of developing the car very well, pursuing young drivers. I don't, it's been a couple of years since they've done that. So yeah, I don't know what we're going to see from Haas, but I don't think it's going to be anything ground shattering.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel like they're all in and bought into going and doing all of the little things that they have to do to win championships. It feels like when Haas first came in, they were this underdog that was like doing things slightly different, and they had good results 2016, 2017, 2018. Like, we're moving up, and then it just felt like ever since the rich energy sponsorships, it's felt like Haas has been trying to cut corners where they can, whether it be picking their young drivers based on who's going to bring them in the most sponsor money, or partnering with other brands like Delar to even build a car. It just feels like there's something to be said about doing things different and seeing if it works. But in Formula One, if you look at the recipe of success from the top teams, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, they're all doing things operationally, in a similar way and following like the same recipe of like, we know these are the things we have to do and the amount of effort that we have to put in and resources we have to spend to find success in this sport. It just feels like Haas isn't willing to make those sacrifices as a team, or maybe it's an ownership level. Maybe Gene isn't willing to put enough money into the team as he should.
Yeah, and I think it might be tough for Gene because Gene has his hand in a lot of different things in the motorsport world, including NASCAR, and I think he's been heavily involved in NASCAR for quite a long time, and I think maybe it's a big jump. It's a different world, NASCAR to Formula One, and if he's trying to focus on maybe too many things at once, that might be or might prevent him from going all in on the F1 team. But yeah, we'll see how it continues to play out. And now Haas has had some quite a bit of experience in Formula One. We're going on, I guess this would be their 9th season in F1. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're a young team anymore. I mean, they've got a little bit of experience behind them. So it'd be really nice to see some tangible steps forward from them, and maybe leadership change with Gunter leaving is what Haas needed, but we'll see in the future.
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think that the new leadership change is a step in the right direction, and that really is like the one thing that makes me think that from the top down there is starting to be some changes towards Haas moving in the right direction. That's the one thing that gives me a glimmer of hope. If it was still Gunter moving into the season, like, I'd be like, Haas 19th and 20th for sure. Like, it's gonna be bad. But there's still that hope. But then the team principal in it the other day said that he thinks they're gonna be in the back. I was like, I don't care if you're gonna be in the back. At least have some support for your drivers, or pride in the team and the people working on the car, and not being like, yeah, we'll probably be 4 or 5 seconds off the pace when we roll up to Bahrain. Like, at least believe it yourself a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that's maybe just a part of the new leadership changes. Like, maybe the new team principal, probably just a more direct person. Might just be trying to be honest with everybody. But a vote of confidence from your leader definitely goes a long way. So it's tough to perform well when you're like, yeah, boss says we're not going to be that good, so we're probably not going to be that good.
Right? It definitely doesn't do anything for sponsorships either. As we said, Haas is struggling financially, and you look at that car, and they definitely don't have that many sponsors on that livery. And I was looking at that Williams launch today, and if you want to talk about them moving in different directions again, seeing sponsors continually added to that Williams livery, And it seems like, you know, maybe we're even seeing less sponsors on the Haas than we did last year. And so, no one's going to want to sponsor a team if the guy in charge is, admitting that they're going to be at the back of the field. So definitely doesn't point Haas in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, time will tell if they're able to right the ship, but yeah, it doesn't seem like um, they're moving very quickly in the right direction.
Right. Well, as we know, there was a chance that Haas wasn't going to be the only Formula One team on the grid, as Andretti had been putting in applications. There had been talks for years. The application was rejected, and this just makes no sense to me at all. I can't imagine anything in my mind that Haas adds to F1 that Andretti wouldn't add. Like, there's a huge and growing American market, and Haas isn't doing anything to capitalize on it. Like, they're not even an underdog team that it's easy to root for. They're just like there driving around at the back with drivers who have been in Formula One for years, and just like there's nothing special about Haas. And in my mind, I feel like Andretti would have been way better for the sport of Formula One than having Haas on the grid.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with, like you mentioned, the emerging, market in America for Formula One. I mean, Andretti is a huge name in motorsport across the world, but especially in the United States, or the success that they've had in IndyCar. And I think they would be a team that would be avidly pushing to bring American drivers into Formula One, which, historically there hasn't been a lot of. And I think if you've got an American team fielding American drivers, at least one American driver, I mean, that would be something huge for, every F1 fan in America to cheer for. And, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me why they reject that. I mean, I guess, I've heard time and time again that there's just major, major pushback from the other teams because that would dilute the revenue that they would receive, because, you'd be splitting it across 11 teams as opposed to 10. But at some point, I got to imagine that the revenue that would be generated from having another team on the grid, especially one that hopefully would draw a lot of fans in from an emerging market, would, offset that a little bit. I don't know. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And, I'm a little disappointed that, we won't be seeing them on the grid, at least in the near future.
I'm definitely disappointed as well. I think one of the biggest things that's in the way for American drivers to getting into the sport is there's just not a pipeline for America. All of the karting drivers in America either go into IndyCar or stock car racing in some way, and if they want to get into Formula racing, they have to come over to Europe. But if you had an American team that had a reputable junior program that was either helping drivers get into Europe or giving them a pipeline from karting into Formula racing, I think, that would make it way easier to get more quality American drivers into the sport. You see American drivers going into other series, going into IndyCar, doing different things in racing. And who's to say that, nothing against Logan Sargent, but who's to say that he's the most talented young driver to come out of America over the last couple of years, or if he was just the one American driver who had it in him to come to Europe and do all the things. And so I feel like, we're missing opportunities without having something like that in place. And I feel like Andretti, with the backing they would bring from themselves and other brands they would be associated with, would have the ability to do that. So yeah, I feel like we're just missing opportunities for sure.
Yeah, and it is disappointing. And, like you said, there's potential that there's way more, there's more talented people than Logan Sargent that could, be out there right now. And, there could be, hundreds of young karting drivers that could be, have potential for Formula One, but just don't have the resources to be able to move to Europe and, spend time and money, investing into karting career. But if they had something like that in the United States, it'd probably be a lot easier. We'd probably see a lot more potential talent. And I guess the exciting thing is that the door isn't completely shut for 2028. One of the reasons why their bid was rejected for 25 and 26 is that the FIA, I guess, said that they would want a new team coming on the grid in 25 and 26 to have an engine that was provided by an already registered um, engine provider in F1. So that would be, have to be, Mercedes, um, Honda, I guess Audi in 2026, but Cadillac and General Motors are registered to be an engine provider in 2028. So in their rejection letter, they did say that, the door isn't completely closed for Andretti to join in 2028, but feels pretty far off from now. So I guess the door isn't completely closed, but, time will tell if Andretti still has the Andretti bid still has the momentum that it does now in 4 years.
4 years definitely feels like a long ways away. And it feels like, there's some hope in saying that the door is open for 2028, but it's definitely one of those things of like, how can you keep this team operational for the next 4 years without being in Formula One to earn points and earn money and, get sponsorship and all of those things? Like, they went as far as to, say they have a car, for the 2025, 2026 regulations, all those things. And it's like, you can't keep preparing cars and being ready to go Formula racing without actually going racing. And so I think that's
Yeah.
difficulties for them. But I think there's a couple paths that they could go. So I think we should talk about these really quick. You think there is a chance that Haas would ever consider selling their current Formula One team to Andretti?
I don't know. It's a possibility. I guess I hadn't really thought about it. I just don't exactly know where Haas ownership is at. I haven't really heard any rumors or anything that Gene would be looking to sell, but I'm not even sure that Andretti would be interested in buying the Haas team with the current condition that it's in. Um, Seems like Andretti would kind of be taking a different approach than Haas would, or that Haas is in Formula One. So I'm not sure if they'd be interested, but I think that would be an intriguing partnership to watch play out. The old, uh, American Formula One team and kind of a newer American Formula One team, new people, new resources that, want to maybe move a different direction. Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely a possibility. I think back to when Red Bull bought Jaguar, and obviously it wasn't necessarily about buying the Jaguar team and having all of the resources that the Jaguar team had. It was about getting that spot on the grid and being able to have a Red Bull team on the grid. And Red Bull was fully prepared, knowing that they were going to do things in Formula One completely different than Jaguar did. And now Red Bull has a floating yacht every time we go to Monaco, and is a very revolutionary brand in Formula One. And so I think Andretti would probably want to take a similar approach to acquiring Haas as Red Bull did. I think their acquirement of Haas wouldn't necessarily be about getting the Haas facilities, getting the Haas per all of that. I guarantee they could find some use, especially out of the personnel who have been in Formula One, a lot of the behind the scenes people that we don't see. But I think it would be more about acquiring their spot on the grid and having a couple years in Formula One before, 2028 happens and they, get a new engine manufacturer. So if it was coming into Formula One, in 2026 through acquiring Haas, that would give them 2 years of learning how to design a car, learning how to, operate a car for a full Formula One season, a lot of things operationally in Formula One that would give them a step up when, the full plan could be enacted in 2028. And so I think it would definitely be more about just getting a spot on the grid more than it was about getting, the Haas entry.
I guess it's kind of the message that F1's sending Andretti with the rejection. It's like, okay, the way you're going to get in soon is going to have to be by buying an existing spot on the grid. They're not looking to expand, I guess, 25 or 26, but if Andretti wanted to pursue that bid and could get a deal done, then I'm sure they would welcome that.
But that's the thing is I don't think an 11th team would be bad for Formula One. You know, I think something that we hear every year when silly season rolls around is that there's not enough seats on the grid. And then anytime it comes to add seats on the grid, everyone's like, oh, well, you know, an 11th team, I don't know how it would be for the sport. You know, it's been 10 for so many years now. You go back to like 2016, there were more than 10 teams. You go back even further than that, and we had drivers finishing 24th in a race. It's going to be okay, and especially you can look back at those years and be like, oh man, yeah, there were a lot of teams that weren't competing for points and were kind of just trundling around at the back. One, you had good drivers get their starts in those teams, and just having a seat in Formula One to show your talent is better than not having a seat in Formula One at all. But Haas is trundling around at the back right now, and no one is saying that their entry should be taken away. I'm confident that Andretti would come in and probably perform better than Haas would right now at this very moment. And
Yeah.
so I don't think it would be a bad thing for the sport to add an 11th team.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not, I'm kind of in the same camp as you. Uh, you know, uh, I hear and I understand the revenue dilution, agree, argument, I guess you could say. But beyond that, it's like, what negative points do we have other than giving more people opportunities to race at the pinnacle of motorsport? I mean, that sounds like a great thing to me. It's a great thing from a fan perspective. So, I don't know why the FIA and Formula One don't want that. I understand it's an exclusive, thing to be a Formula One driver, but it's great to have more talent on the grid, and who knows what that could lead to for Formula One in general.
And I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's not like Andretti is some random person wanting to get into this exclusive sport. Like, Mario Andretti has won races in Formula One, and just, a couple races ago in Formula E, the Andretti team won an FIA regulated event. Like, they won an FIA Formula race like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so it's like Andretti should be fully prepared to come into Formula One and add value to the sport through their name and through their ability to know how to operate a Formula team. And so to me, it just doesn't make sense to me. I feel like F1 is losing out so much. For them to like truly say that they want to capitalize on this American market, I just feel like it's such a missed opportunity for them to not let Andretti on the grid.
And I mean, Mario Andretti won a Drivers' World Championship in Formula One. He is a Formula One world champion, which is crazy. And his son, Michael, also raced in Formula One. Didn't win any races or a world championship, but yeah, we don't have to talk too much about that. But, I mean, to be a Formula One driver is a huge accomplishment. And two people in their family have accomplished that. So, I mean, I think it's crazy, and one thing that I like about Formula One is that there's so much respect for a driver who's won a world championship before. And, I mean, even after, even long after they retire, you look at Nico Rosberg, Jenson Button. I mean, these guys have so much respect among the paddock and just around the Formula One world. And I feel like I don't know why Mario Andretti isn't getting that respect, even though it's been around 50 years since he won the world championship, but it's like he's still a world champion. So,
we can say that we wish they were here all they want, but unfortunately, there's nothing two guys talking about it on a podcast can do about it. What are your parting podium thoughts for these lovely people before we wrap up today?
parting podium thoughts. I guess we're about 2 weeks out from testing, and that's really exciting. Things are ramping up. The 2 car launches, livery launches today. We'll be talking more about them soon. And we've got a lot more coming this week. So things are picking up. Things are exciting, and we'll have cars on the track before we know it.
Testing is just around the corner. We've got 4 cars that have been revealed, so it's almost half the grid now. So we really will see cars on track soon, and we'll get to see that Haas at last place in testing. We'll all be proven right.
Hopefully so. I mean, much as I want Haas to shock the world, get a little P1 in one of the testing sessions, I don't think it's going to happen. But Lewis is going to Ferrari, so can't say no to anything at this point, I guess.
Yeah, who knows what is going to happen. Well, Brandon, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure as always. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait to see you next time. See ya.
Yeah.